and welcome to the BetterU Podcast, where we go in depth and get to listen to stories of hope, strength, and courage straight from some of the leading health, fitness, and wellness experts who help transform lives one person at a time. I'm your host, RKaye, and today we are joined by the lovely Gwen Lane, content creator, business mentor, and online educator. Hello. Nice to meet you.
Hi, thank you. So happy to be here.
Well, we are so honored to have you with us today, Gwen. I know we were supposed to be doing this like a couple of weeks back, but life happens. But anyway, at least we're doing this episode right now. Now, for starters, I just like everyone to know that Gwen is like me. She's part Filipina. Well, I'm full Filipina, but anyway, we kind of, I don't know, her aura shouts Filipino, so I just wanted to say that out loud. But anyway,
I'm full Filipina too.
I just like part Filipina, but anyway, so that is something that we kind of share, like, on the basis of that. I know that Gwen has like a lot of different experiences that she has under her belt, but of course I will leave her to share those wonderful stories with us. So Gwen, could you tell our audience a little more about yourself, how it all started, how your business began?
Sure. So after college, I worked in the entertainment industry in Los Angeles, where I grew up. So I was born in the Philippines, and then I moved to Los Angeles when I was 5 years old. So I was there for like 30 years. And so working in entertainment companies, advertising, marketing, working mostly with film and digital media as that started becoming more and more popular than, traditional print, radio, billboards. They still happen, but now everything has moved to digital. And so I had gained a lot of experience in that field. I also worked for Gen Z millennial creator YouTube channels. And that's when I really got inspired by the creator space. And I started my first business, The LA Girl, as a travel and lifestyle blog that talked to millennial women in LA. So I told them, my recommendations for things to do in the city, a lot of it lifestyle, health, and wellness, because that's very important to me. So like places to do yoga, places to go hiking, because people from out of town would always ask me the same thing. I'm like, go to my blog and you'll have a whole list.
Yeah.
And so I was growing that blog, and I started getting a bunch of sponsorship requests from Disney, Meta, companies like Target, Starbucks, and a lot of travel companies, because that's what I talked about. And so a lot of content creators would ask me, how did you partner with these brands? What do I do? What do I say? What do I charge? And so as much as I loved answering people's questions, I was like, I can't answer on my DMs all day. I have a job. I was still working at my 9-to-5 job. And I had my blog, which was like another full-time job. So I was working 2 jobs. And so I started creating online courses and memberships for creators and teaching them how to monetize their content. Because a lot of even today, people grow a following on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, and they're like, well, how do I make money? How do I do this full time so I don't have to go to my 9-to-5? It's a lot to manage. We can talk more about burnout and overwhelm later on, because I know you want to talk about that. But yeah, so I started that, and I've been doing that for about 6 years now, made over $1 million in sales in courses and memberships and programs online. I get to teach people from all over the world. And my husband and I recently moved to Minnesota. It's been 3 years now. My stepdaughter lives here. So I was able to sell the LA Girl, actually. So I had my first exit with a first business. So now I'm in my second business and teaching and being educator, and also doing business strategy for other companies. So I'm super excited to share my learnings. I feel like I've been doing this for a long time. They always say, like, it's not just 6 years, but like the build up from corporate experience and everything you learned in your life. So it's like 39 plus years of experience, because I'm turning 40 next year.
Nice. Well, you don't look a day over 12.
Thank you.
Well, your story is pretty amazing because of course like LA is such a huge place and a lot of people are probably wondering like LA's you it's a melting pot of so many different people and so many different talented, gifted people, right? And you managed to take a step forward and say like, hey, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm going to do, and so far you've been very successful about it. Could you tell our audience, because of course like in terms of fitness we also look into mindset and goal setting and things like that, and again to my audience, like fitness isn't really just exercise, it's a lot more stuff going on in the background that you really need to channel and focus. So for you, what has been the main kind of experience that has always been something that you look back to that has always like really motivated and pushed you forward? Because I'm sure there are a lot of stressors that happened in your life before you could really become the success that you are now. So is there a specific experience, let's say, or a story that you kind of go back to and you tell yourself, well, I was able to overcome that, so anything else that I want to get into, I'll be able to do it?
Yeah, so a lot of things come to mind, but there's actually, something that I feel like would be helpful to everyone is thinking about, making decisions, right? I think that, I was working in entertainment, which a lot of people, that's their dream. Like that's all they want to do in life is make in the entertainment industry and, get to hang out with celebrities, which we did all the time.
Yeah.
I got to meet Kim Kardashian. Like I've been able to go to these parties.
Yeah.
And the thing that I'm sure a lot of successful people tell you is that sometimes when you're there, you think that's what you want. And then when you get there, it's not. And when I got there, I was starting to think like, is this my life? Like, is this, going to parties, going to work? And then like, is this it? Like, do I just stay here and retire here and just jump around in the entertainment industry? And that when I started my own thing, and I've always been an entrepreneur at heart, I started selling Pokemon cards when I was 16 on eBay. Like I would flip tickets. I would do a lot of things because I love the thrill of buying and selling. And I love that journey. And so when I was like, okay, I just go to my job, I do stuff and I go to parties, the fulfillment wasn't there. But I was really struggling with the expectations of like society, of family, like, oh, you have a good job. Why would you leave benefits and your 401k and your cushy job and you get to, you're fine. But I realized that there was something more. Like there was always like a feeling of there's something I need to do. I want to do my own thing. There was also like the restrictions. And I feel like this goes to health. It's like, if you want to have a doctor's appointment, you have to ask for permission. If you want to take time off, you have to like get approval. And I was very rebellious growing up, and I was not all about that life. I loved being able to go to, one of the things that I felt like was the definition of success for me was I could go to yoga at 9 a.m. And so when I was in LA, when I finally quit my job, and it took many years because I was having so much internal struggles of, should I leave? Should I not? Maybe I should stay. Maybe I should save up more. I'm not ready. Like, oh my God, what am I doing? It was it took a term on my health, in that indecision. So when I finally made the decision, I told myself, okay, I'm going to go to Core Power Yoga and I'm going to go 9 a.m. and see who there isn't at their 9-to-5 job. And to me, that was the definition of success. And I know it's different for everyone and it's different for different things. Like obviously that was just a very nice check that I could say that I could do that. But today it's like, we moved to Minnesota to be with my stepdaughter. When the summers, I could take summer Fridays, I could take weeks off for vacations. There's ways to automate that. And so I feel like my motto or mantra for my life has always been like life first, work second. And I don't think people who have sometimes they don't have that balance with a 9 to 5 job, and you don't have that choice, because if you have a very demanding job and you're required to work those hours, like you're forced to put yourself second. And I, as an entrepreneur, that's one of the reasons why I love what I do, is because I could put my life, my family, me first.
That is absolutely like that. That to me is like true. I do agree with that. Like a good amount of time, a lot of us are like really stressed out with trying to balance, like, resting, being with family, and some jobs are just really just stress filled that you can't really do anything about that, right? So you did have mention about you and self-care pretty much, because you do try to balance out your family life, just pretty much living instead of, just getting stuck in work. Are there particular tips or tricks that you yourself as a busy entrepreneur, is there any suggestions that you could maybe give to our audience out there who are also like you, who are very busy, but just they don't seem to think that it's gonna work? So what was it for you that kind of worked and helped you out in terms of balancing the work life thing?
Yeah, it's really interesting, because I feel like, there are different stages of the journey. Like, I'm not going to lie and be like, oh, I had work balance the whole time. I'm like, no. When you're at your 9 to 5 job and you're side hustling, you have double job, and like you're working nonstop. And I think it's like you kind of just have, it's survival. Like, you probably won't have date nights. You probably won't have vacations, and it's a sacrifice. And that's really what it is. And then it's basically trying to get your business to the point where you can afford to hire help. And once, a lot of people go really long and they get exhausted and burnt out, and then their business doesn't survive because they didn't hire enough right away. And then some people hire too late and some people hire early. I preferred to hire early, because even though I could have made more money and more profit and kept it to myself, I was like, I want to do all of this by myself. And so I hired VAs, virtual assistants, some of them from the Philippines, actually. And because I wanted to help people from our country, and give them opportunities to like work from home. So I really love that you could do that now. And so I hired VAs very early on, because I knew that I didn't want to burn myself out. It was either me or someone else. And also I think like letting go of the control that only I could do it was like a big lesson. It's like, no, someone else can copy and paste my Instagram to Facebook. And to Twitter. Like, it doesn't have to be me. And starting to let go of those tasks, and that brought in more balance. But in the beginning, though, there was no balance. And my husband now, who I was dating at the time, I was like, look, we were dating, and I was like, my nights and weekends are to my business. And I have time to eat, and we can eat. And I always hiked. That's how we met. I always made time for hiking, but I told him like most of the days, like I'm working on this business because I'm trying to leave my job. And, I think that having people who understand and support you, even though they can't see the dream. So what I always say is like entrepreneurs are delusional, right? Because we have to believe that, oh, it's going to happen, even though no one sees it first. And sometimes other people are like, oh, what are you doing? Like, you have a great job. Why would you want to do that? But entrepreneurs are like, they have a dream in mind, and they just have to keep going, even though no one else sees that dream. So in the beginning, there was no work-life balance. I think that's most people that start, unless you have the funding to hire someone right away, or, the second thing would be like choosing really what's your priority. So I have intentionally stopped using the word busy, because I don't believe in it. Like, everyone's busy. Everyone, I don't think that that's true. I think it's everyone has things to do. But I do believe that someone told me, I'm not exactly sure, but like a mentor of mine said, like, there's no such thing as busy. There's just what you prioritize and what you don't. Right. And so a lot of people are like, oh, I'm too busy to go to the gym. I'm too busy to take care of myself. I'm too busy to, go see a therapist or meditate. It's because it's not important. And that's totally fine that it's not important. But if you say that it is important, then you make time for it. So suddenly the time opens up. I've talked to some people about this. It's like brushing your teeth. Like, you don't have to brush your teeth, but if it's important to you, you're going to brush your teeth every day and every night. And there's habit stacking and all of that stuff that you could do. We sleep every day because we know it's important. We eat every day because we know we're going to start, getting cranky, as my husband would say. He's like, I think you need to eat because you're cranky. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And so we do these things because it's second nature, but also we know what's going to happen when we don't do it. And so I think like I've had enough times where I know, like, if I don't meditate in the morning, if I don't go to the gym at least a couple of times a week, I am going to not be my best self. And so you have to identify what are those priorities, and make time for them. And it's like a non-negotiable in your schedule. And I plan my schedule as if I'm my own executive assistant. So.
That's wonderful. Those are just wonderful tips to share with our audience today, because see, like, Gwen has so many things that are happening in her life, but she manages to put herself first. And I think that's one of the things that people forget these days. We're so just engrossed in what we do. Like, we're always saying that, oh, work is for my family. But then again, how can you work if you're so exhausted, right? How are you going to take care of your family if you can't manage to go to work because you're sick? And it's just a chain, and people just tend to forget about it. So you did mention a while ago about burnout. Now, of course, a lot of people do experience that. How do you handle it as an entrepreneur?
So it's a difficult thing. I still struggle with it. And I think everyone does. Like, people who say they don't struggle with burnout, they're lying. Because everyone, we're batteries, right? We all go to low. We all go to low unless, like, before it goes to that like red on your phone when it's like 20%, you're like, okay, plug it in. So you have to think of yourself as that, like, know your own internal gauge. And so I think that one way to figure that out is I try to do on my monthly reflections, like, where am I? Where am I on my relationships? Like, did I see my friends this month? Like, that is important to me. Did I spend time with my family? Did I go for a hike this month? I'm like, oh, I haven't gone for a hike in a couple of weeks. Let me schedule that in. And so having those internal gauges where you only know. And so I think knowing, like, it's like that battery, like I said with the iPhone, okay, you're getting close to 20%, it's time to recharge. And you also have to know, what are those recharge? So for me, it's like being outside, being in nature. I took my puppy to the dog beach at the lake the other day. I loved it. It was so fun. We learned that he could swim. And so like that was like, being outside just recharges me. I also love to watch movies. I'm really excited to see Little Mermaid. I haven't seen it yet. That's one of my favorite movies growing up. So to see the live action with diversity, I'm very excited about that. And then so like, it doesn't mean like, okay, take a break, which I do love, but what does taking a break mean to you, right? So is it sitting outside? Is it going for a walk? Is it spending time with your friends, with your family? I just went to a business conference, and even though it was work, a lot of it was connection and networking. And that was really energizing to me. I'm tired because I talked to a million people and I need to recharge afterwards, but then it was energizing to me. So I think a lot of it is being self-aware enough to know what drains you, what charges you, and like looking at your internal battery and like, oh my gosh, am I going to 20%, 10%? Sometimes the bad thing is too, we are so hardworking, right? Hardworking. We're so determined to get it done. We're so ambitious to a fault where we get ourselves to 2%. Where your phone's about to die and you're like, oh man, if I'm in the middle of nowhere at a concert and if it dies, no one will know where I am, kind of thing. And it's like, We are so worried about our phones when it does that, but we're not
Yeah.
worried about ourselves and we don't check in with ourselves. And so I think
Exactly.
burnout is an ongoing process. We're going to learn more as we get there. But I think because I've been doing this for so long and I've kind of know where I'm getting that close, I'm starting to pick up when I'm under 20%. And I have like a list of things that I'm like, okay, go for a hike, go for a bike ride, go to the gym, hang out with my dog, and have those tools to go ahead and charge myself.
Those are really wonderful explanations of how to understand things more, because people these days, we tend to look at things either black and white. It's either you work or you rest. It doesn't necessarily mean that when someone rests, they do nothing at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the things that we should really become more aware of. Now, a while ago, Gwen, you did mention mentors. And of course, coaches have to have coaches too, right? And so what do you think was one of the main number one experiences you've had with a mentor that has really molded you into becoming the mentor that you are to a lot of coaches out there these days?
Oh my God, that's such a hard question because I have had millions of mentors. And mentors are not just people you know. People are mentors that you watch their YouTube videos or you read their book or you heard a podcast like yours where you hear something and like even though you don't know them in real life, they could be a mentor to you. And
Absolutely.
even like your kids can be a mentor. Like my stepdaughter just turned 10 and she says things and I'm like, whoa, philosophy level, it's like everyone is a teacher. And I think that life is a learning process. I don't believe that we stop learning after school.
True.
I feel like every day is learning in progress, learning in real life. And so I have had so many mentors. I can't even count because it's like I read a lot of books, I listen to a lot of podcasts, I watch a lot of videos. I think that the most recent business conference that I went to, one of the mentors that I learned from there, he talked about, learning is great, but nothing actually happens until you start implementing and executing. And so sometimes we fall into the trap of, I got to research how to do this. Oh, I got to learn first. Oh, I'm going to take 10 courses. Oh, I'm going to join 10 memberships. Oh, I'm going to read 50 books. And then like nothing really happens. And so I think it's kind of like the balance and the burnout is the balance of the learning from your mentors versus the execution, because it stays in your brain and then it doesn't really, it kind of just like evaporates and doesn't, you're not able to like pass it on to people until you're like posting content or you're, sharing like in a podcast or in some sort of medium where other people can then hear it and get their takeaways. And I think that so execution versus learning and knowing when it's time to stop learning and stop executing. It's usually now. It's usually when you're like, oh, should I be executing? The answer is always yes. And a lot of the times I think it's also because we are analyzing and doing analysis paralysis. Like, am I ready? Have I learned enough? Do I have enough experience? Do we question ourselves on, is it time to put this out in the world? But we all know, like, we probably should have started way before when we first had the idea, but because we were over analyzing it and fear of judgment of people, then we started. I'm sure like you thought about this podcast way before when you actually launched it, right? And then you're like, oh, I should have launched this months ago or years ago because people love it. And I mean, no matter how many, sometimes we get caught up in followers or likes or metrics. Like, even one person who hears your advice, that's all that we really want, is to just help one person at a time. And so execution, definitely a thing. And then, making sure that you put what you have out there, because other people right now are like waiting for you to do that.
That is absolutely that is spot on. A very good piece of advice, because you are absolutely right. Like in terms of like me putting it into most of the people in my audience, it's the same thing as when you tell your brain, or your brain just says, oh, I want to exercise today, but you don't really do it. There really needs to be action. You gotta be an action taker. Sometimes people think, I have to be ready for something, but in truth is there's no such thing really as like ready, right? So Gwen, as a last bit, is there any piece of advice that you would like to share with our audience today in terms of, setting your mind to the goals that you would like to achieve in your life, whether it's related to your health and fitness or whether it's related to work? So is there a piece of advice or maybe a favorite quote that you have that's really very enlightening or can serve as a good tip for our audience out there?
Yeah, so I'm just coming off of that conference, and all of my thoughts are on that as top of mind. And so I received, a plaque award that says, like millionaire mogul, because I've made over $1 million on the platform. And one of the attendees came up to me and was like, oh, that's going to be me next year. Like, how do you feel? Do you feel different? And I'm like, no, I feel the same, because like I said earlier, like I had in my mind, I was already there. Like I already visualized it there. And I had him hold the plaque. He's like, I can hold it. I was like, yeah, you can hold it. It's just a thing in a frame. And I was like, do you feel different? He's like, no. And that just shows you, like, sometimes we have these goals because we think I'm going to be a different person, or I'm going to feel so much more successful. But I think that what we need to do is like live in that embodiment now of like, I already made $1 million and it's just a matter of time until I get the plaque comes, right? So in my mind, I was already telling myself, like, unless I give up, I'm going to get there. And I feel it's the same with like your fitness goals and your wellness goals, like making sure that today, what would that person who is already, in their ideal body type, how would they do now? Like they'd probably eat really well. They'd probably be hydrating and have their, giant water bottle. They'd probably be wearing the clothes that make them feel good. Like do it now. And same with business. You're going to have $1 million business if you don't give up, no matter how long it takes to get there, no matter what you do. And so what would that, $1 million business owner do now? Like you would, maybe start outsourcing and, stop like holding your money close to you and hire someone, because there's no $1 million business owner that I know that doesn't have help and that doesn't have a team supporting them. Like nobody does these things alone. And so I think that my advice to you is, visualize what that looks like and start making those decisions now. Because here's the secret. It's not going to feel different then. It's not. Everyone says that, like, is it different? I'm like, no, I feel like exactly the same person, because I've been transforming into that day to day. It's not like 0 to 100 in one day. Exactly. You are like already evolving every single day. So you're just like helping the process go through that.
That's such wonderful advice coming from Gwen, guys. So to everyone watching us and listening to us in today's episode, like take Gwen's advice, take notes today, and because she just shared with us so many really wonderful tips and tricks that you can do, not just on basis of how you work, but also when it comes to taking care of yourselves. So guys, everyone who wants to get in touch with Gwen, work with her, and all that, I will leave all of the details in the description box below so you guys can go follow her today. All right? So everyone who's watching and listening, thank you again for joining us in today's BetterU Podcast. Again, Gwen, thank you so much for being with us today. I'm Coach RKaye, and as always, reminding you to never give up on your movement journey, because it's never too late to move. Bye-bye, guys.